Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 21 of my 2021 reads. This week I read quite a few very good things. I had to pause one thing, and I want to tell you at the end about a collaboration video on the Worldhoppers channel that I was in. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I finished The Red Threads of Fortune by Neon Yang. This is the second book in the Tensorate series, and I have been meaning to get to this for quite a long time because I read the first book, The Black Tides of Heaven, about 2 years ago, and the world building in this series is just so great. It's a silk punk world, so it's got a lot of kind of Eastern mythology mixed with a lot of science and kind of like steampunk, but really set in the East. And this one is just like the first in terms of world building. It's got excellent world building, really fascinating ways that magic works and the technology works. I loved all of that. I also think that the political intrigue in this was, again, very interesting. But this book is something that focuses a lot on the internal struggle of the main character, who is dealing with a lot of grief and trauma. And so the basic storyline is that our main character, Mokoya, is trying to track down this kind of monster naga that needs to be contained because it's trying to attack a city. But really, we're following a lot of her internal struggles because she's got a lot to work through. So the story has a lot of angst, a lot of kind of melodrama, and a lot of action. I think the action is something that would work really well for other people, even though I prefer my stories a little bit slower. The angst was also a bit much for me, but it really makes sense given that the character is dealing with some major traumatic events, and really the crux of the story is revolving around her trying to work through that. The ending of this I actually really loved because it touched on some ideas and some themes that I thought were just so interesting. And I wasn't necessarily expecting the story to go there, and the fact that it did, I really liked the ending of this. So I'm definitely continuing on with the series. This volume in the series I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman. This is a sort of self-help book from the 1980s that is incredibly influential in the positive psychology movement, which is really focusing on how do we make ourselves happier. The basic premise of this is that you can learn how to be more optimistic, and that one of the things that makes people pessimistic is when something bad happens and they focus on it being personal, so sort of it's all of my fault, pervasive, sort of this ruins everything, and permanent, it'll be bad forever. And the idea is how to break out of that negative thought cycle, address those thoughts, and really think, no, it's probably just something temporary. Maybe I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me an awful person. And it maybe makes this one thing bad, but that doesn't make the rest of my life bad. So that kind of idea. And the idea is a very solid one. I think it's really influential and good. However, this book was written in the 1980s, and its age shows so much. There is so much in here that is vaguely unsettling, just maybe vaguely sexist and those sorts of things. It just feels uncomfortable to read. Also, the book itself, while the core idea is solid, is filled with a ton of information about the different research projects that Seligman had done looking at different effects of positive psychology on business and on politics and all these sorts of things. And if you're really interested in that, I think it could be a good read. But if you're looking for the sort of self-help part of it, I think it's incredibly bloated. I will link instead an article that I found below that you could read in maybe 5-10 minutes that summarizes all the key points from this book, and I would recommend that instead. Or if you're somebody who really is interested in just how to kind of have a more positive outlook on life, I'd actually recommend 2 newer books that don't have all of the kind of dated issues that this one does. The first is The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor. And the second is How to Have a Good Day by Caroline Webb. I do have standalone reviews for both of those, so I will link those below because they are modern books that look at positive psychology and they do such a great job. So this book, Learned Optimism, I gave 3 out of 5 stars, and that 3 stars is really because the core idea is good, but I would not actually recommend picking this one up. The next book, on the other hand, I would very much recommend that you pick up, which is Goodbye Vitamin by Rachel Khong. This is a sort of contemporary family drama book that I fell in love with. So I picked this up because David at ThePoptimist, who I will link below, did a video, which I will also link below, talking about the bookish influence of BookTok versus YouTube, and said, hey, let's kind of flex our power as YouTube and everybody go buy Goodbye Vitamin. This book had been on my radar for quite a while, and I thought, you know what? I would love to do this anyway. I'd love to support this author. So I bought myself an ebook copy, and now I think I need to go buy a physical copy because I loved this book. I will have a standalone review for this later this week, but guys, it's so good. So this is the story of Ruth, who is in her 30s, and she has to move back home to help because her dad is developing Alzheimer's and her mother needs help with that. And it's all about her negotiating that new relationship with her parents as an adult child, kind of coming to terms with her father's illness and really figuring out what really matters to her in life. It is written through a series of journal entries, and it's just such a low-key story that actually has really deep undercurrents and themes. It has a lot of humor. It is so readable. I was just really, really moved by this book, but also thought that it had 0 melodrama, which is always important to me. I like impactful books that don't necessarily take you on a roller coaster. They're more subtle in the way that they examine different themes that are heavier. And I thoroughly loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I definitely recommend you pick it up. And if you're interested, check out my review later this week. Next, I finished Spy X Family Volume 1 by Tatsuya Endo, translated from Japanese by Casey Lowe. This is a manga that I'd heard about from Reija at the Book Finch, who I will link below. They always have the best recommendations for manga and graphic work, so if you're at all interested in that, check their channel out. This was such a fun manga. I've really had a great time with it. It is set in sort of a Cold War inspired world where there's kind of an East and West Berlin, and we follow a guy who is a spy who's very good at what he does, but he likes to work solo, except he gets a new assignment where he needs to infiltrate an elementary school academy. And so he needs to recruit a fake wife and a fake daughter who he chooses end up being actually the fake wife is an assassin and the fake daughter is a telepath, which he does not know. So this story is so absurd, so ridiculous, so fun. The characters are super likable, and there's tons of that kind of Cold War era spy action, lots of that kind of battles between spy people and a lot of trying to figure out what other people are going to do, and it goes really fun, especially when there's a lot of ridiculous things that happen trying to get the daughter into the school. I was so amused by this. I really loved reading it. I'm definitely going to read the other books in the series. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And then lastly, I did pause one book, which was Broken Stars, edited by Ken Liu. This is a collection of translated Chinese science fiction. I was buddy reading this with Tori at Tori Morrow, who I will link below, and very much enjoying it, but Tori got really busy. So we have rescheduled. We're going to read it later on in the year. And I'm really looking forward to it because the first couple of stories were excellent. So definitely on pause with the intent to continue this as soon as the scheduling works out. Okay, so that is everything that I read for this week. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I did participate in a collaborative video on the Worldhoppers channel, and I will link that video below. Worldhoppers is a collaborative channel where a bunch of kind of SFF booktubers come together and do lots of different chats about books. So the video that I was a part of was talking about underrated fantasy, and it was so much fun. We had a great panel panel of different people who have lots of different tastes, lots of different resources for where they get their underrated fantasy, lots of very interesting differences in the sorts of books that each person recommended. So that was a fun video, and if you're interested in underrated fantasy, I recommend checking it out. Okay, that's everything for this week. If you guys have any thoughts, any recommendations, anything you want to chat with me about, just leave me a comment down below.